On this episode of the Rebel Health Tribe podcast, available at rebelhealthtribe.com, we welcome Dr. Sachin Patel from the Living Proof Institute and becomeproof.com.
Well, I think, with spirituality comes trust. And when I say trust, I think I trust in a higher power. And some people might say God, some people might say Gaia, some people might say energy, whatever it is you believe in. I'm not here to judge or instill my beliefs on anyone, but I just believe that there's a higher energy at play and that we're all basically put on this planet for a very specific reason. And everything that I do, I don't do it for myself. I do it to satisfy the reason I was put on this planet. The spirituality aspect, I think, has really helped me, and it's helped me trust when I thought that things were not going the way I wanted to, or things weren't unfolding the way I expected them to. It's that trust that allows you to keep moving forward and moving in the right direction, and then trusting that there's a higher power at play. It makes a big difference because you're able to overcome so many more obstacles. And it's really interesting is that once you have that 100% trust in this higher power, you can start manifesting. And so you can start manifesting some amazing things into your life.
That's coming up. Welcome back to the Rebel Health Tribe podcast. I'm Joe Regnol with Michael Roseline. What's up, Mike?
Yo, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Doing good, man. I feel good. I had a good night's sleep last night, so,
Nice.
Ready to go.
It's a good day. Friday. I don't know what day this is going to air on, but it's a Friday in our life right now in this present moment, so happy Friday.
Happy Friday for those who celebrate such things. For me, it's just like another day, another good day. So today we're joined by Dr. Sachin Patel. Hey, Dr. Patel. How's it going?
Going amazing. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Sweet shirt, man. I should have worn mine.
Yeah, I was going to wear mine too. But
it's sent you guys
for sure. Dr. Patel, for folks who may not be familiar with you, we always start out by just asking people, what it is that they do and why they do it.
Okay, so good question. So let me start with a little bit about my story and how I got into this space. I'm currently a functional medicine practitioner and the founder of the Living Proof Institute. And what we essentially do is we help people reach their human potential. So our practice actually goes beyond functional medicine. We explore mindset, we explore environment, we explore the things that you can't test and the things that you can't see on paper and the things that you may have a hard time quantifying. So our goal is really to help people bring out the best in themselves. So we explore things like relationships, we explore things like their environment, their circadian rhythm and clock, we explore their mindset and their subconscious programming. And then, of course, we also explore their biochemistry because their biochemistry is going to run the whole show. And by the time people get to us, they're typically, sometimes down in the dumps, or their biochemistry isn't serving them in a way that allows them to recover and then take advantage of all the other things that we help them with. So, at the core of this, I'm a functional medicine practitioner, but the overarching mission of our organization and our practice is really the human potential. So we work with people who are well, we work with people who are looking to explore their potential, such as athletes and executives and entrepreneurs, and really just help people bring out the best in themselves. My story is that I got into this, I started off as a sports chiropractor, and so I've been helping people for many years perform at the highest level possible in terms of athletics and mechanics, but I was missing a big part of the picture. I wasn't looking at their biochemistry. And in 2006, I was on the news, and through this process where the news did a story about elbow pain, we were helping people with chronic soft tissue injuries like tennis elbow. The end result of that was we had all these chronically ill patients coming in who were not well, people with fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, all kinds of other issues, and nobody had elbow pain. So all these people came in, and not one of them had tennis elbow. They had all these other chronic health conditions. And so I really didn't know how to help these people. I was helping people who were already performing at a high level, people who we would consider very healthy perform better, but I was unable to at that time help people who were unwell. And so I kind of scratched my head and had some hair at that time, so I was like pulling my hair out trying to figure out how to help these people. But I realized that I couldn't, I just didn't have the training. But what I also realized is neither did their doctors. And so there's nobody really to send these people to, because these people had already tried every drug, they've already had every scan, they've already had every traditional lab work marker ran on them, and this is the state of health that they were in. So these are people that the medical system kind of spit out. So it wasn't for a lack of trying, but they just didn't know what to do. And of course, many people are told that your lifestyle and your diet and all of those things don't matter because there's no studies, but of course nobody's doing these studies, right? And so as a result of my clinical frustration and feeling inadequate as a practitioner, I started exploring functional medicine. And it was around that time where I started just getting case studies from Dr. Grisanti, who's one of my clinical mentors, and it just resonated. Everything that he was saying made total sense, as it does now when we explain it to our patients. And he was running labs that I had never seen before, but were available to us practitioners. And so I started exploring functional medicine more closely. And since then, I've just never looked back. So we've been applying the principles of functional medicine, which is getting to the root cause of people's health issues, and not just from a chemistry standpoint, because there's people that have good chemistry, but they have bad relationships, right? There's people that have good chemistry, but they have toxic thought patterns. And so clinically, I evolved to realize that I can make people look good on paper, and I can give them the right supplements, and they still wouldn't get better because the problem was bigger than their biochemistry. So we started expanding the scope of our practice and the scope of the the influence that we have on our patients, and exploring more of the human side, right? More of the things that we can't quantify and the things that we can't measure. So our practice has evolved into a center for human potential versus just a clinical practice where sick people come and get better, because you can't get people better unless you address all these different facets in their life.
You were talking about something pretty interesting in your practice, which I think is a testament to your practice, is that the people that work for you were patients of yours.
Yeah, every single person that is part of our practice, including myself, because I didn't even get it to that side of it. As I started learning about functional medicine, I started applying the principles to myself. So I went gluten-free. I started, really understanding what good digestion was, and I realized I didn't have good digestion, and so I started, cleaning up my diet. I was vegetarian, and basically what I realized was I was eating a lot of grains. And as a result of that, I was fatigued all the time. I had chronic joint pain. I had acne. I had all kinds of other issues going on that conventional medicine didn't really have answers for. So I accepted them. I accepted that, hey, this is how I'm going to feel. And I always felt this way. So I didn't know any different. And so I just thought everyone felt this way. And it was just a real revelation when I started learning about the things that I might be doing that could be interfering with my health. And then once I experienced the benefits of functional medicine, then I was like, okay, I can't keep doing this traditional chiropractic sports practice anymore. I need to definitely incorporate these type of services. And through the years, my wife is a pharmacist, for those of you that don't know that, and she started seeing the incredible results that we were getting with patients, so she quit her pharmacy job and came on board with me. And of course, we all if we look, we'll all find something, right, that we can work on. So we started getting her tested and started realizing that, hey, there was ways that we could optimize her health as well. She has a gene for celiac disease, for example, and she was eating a lot of grains at the time. So we really optimized our health. And every person that works in our practice was once a patient, and it just kind of worked out that way. It wasn't necessarily our hiring criteria, and nobody really works for me. We work for a mission, right? So everyone that is on our team sat on the other side of the desk, so they know what it feels like sitting on the other side of the desk, and they've got their own amazing story about how functional medicine helped them, and that allows patients to really connect with them as well. I think it's really interesting, because when you go see a specialist, most of the time that specialist chose their profession in their mid-20s when they were probably the healthiest they ever were. But when you see a functional medicine practitioner, that person basically reframed the way they look at things as a result of their own personal hero's journey. And so most functional medicine practitioners right now aren't coming out of school trained in functional medicine. It's usually they've either been failed or underserved by the medical practice that they've seen, or even in their own information that they lack. And so that's how our practice kind of grew, is everyone is passionate about helping people, because they know what it feels like not to feel well, and they know what journey they went on to feel better again. And because of that, I think it just builds a much better human bond with the patients that they're coming in and seeing.
Yeah, that seems to be a very common theme for people who are in this functional medicine, holistic health space, that they really went through, like you said, the hero's journey which I believe is a reference to Joseph Campbell. But um, yeah, so I mean, and I think it's important for people like yourself to be transparent about that, about your own struggles, to let people know that I've been there too, and that you
Right.
understand. Um, did you have, that became normal to you. Your symptoms became normal to you. But do you remember you struggling with your health either even in your childhood?
Yeah, every morning I'd wake up and I wouldn't be able to close my hands. My hands would just be really stiff.
Hmm.
And for the first 15, 20 minutes, that's how every day went. My ankles would be really tight, my joints would be really tight, and so I just
Hmm.
accepted that. I
Right. The
accepted
new
that was
normal.
normal.
Yeah.
And when I started treating patients as a chiropractor, and I started asking them these questions, I thought they were lying, right? So when they told me they didn't have any stiffness in the morning, I thought they were lying because I was doing a lot more to stay healthy than many of these people were. Even though I wasn't perfect at the time, I'm still not perfect, but
Yeah.
even though I was like so far removed from where I am now, I was still light years ahead of what my patients were eating
Hmm.
and doing and functioning. And of course, they were coming to see me for help. So obviously, they were in rough shape. So when I started asking patients some of the symptoms that I was dealing with, and they didn't have them, I was like, okay, what gives? What am I doing wrong, or what could I do differently? And at the time, I was about 20 pounds heavier, all muscle, and so you wouldn't guess that there's something wrong with this guy, right?
Right.
And so the outward appearance was that this person is perfectly healthy, but the internal struggle was that I didn't always feel that way. In fact, I used to have a 2-hour lunch every day at my job, and people were like, "Oh, you're so lucky." But what they didn't realize is I was using an hour to eat and kind of run errands, and the other hour was to sleep. So I'd
Yeah.
actually go and sleep in my car pretty much every day.
I remember those days.
So I was exhausted, and
Sure.
I didn't understand why, and my blood work would always come back normal. And so there's really no answers that traditional medicine could provide me with. And it wasn't until I started again exploring the functional side of things that I realized that I might not have a disease, but I'm not optimal. And
Right.
and that's when my own personal quest to regain my health started.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Markham, which is just a suburb of Toronto, just north of Toronto, Canada. Went to school there, and then I graduated from McMaster University, and
Hmm.
then which is in Hamilton, Ontario. And then from there, I went to New York Chiropractic College, and then from
Hmm.
there, I moved to Cincinnati, and then from Cincinnati, I now moved back to Toronto about 3 years ago now.
Was there a focus on health or medicine that you remember as from childhood?
Not, not really. I mean, we were pretty blessed that nobody in our families really needed medications. Nobody in my family, fortunately, has had any chronic diseases. The typical things that you hear about. And my grandparents lived a very long life. My mom's parents are both still alive. So,
Hmm.
there's a lot of things that we did right. Kind of looking back in hindsight. So for us, my parents were not wealthy by any means. We weren't poor either. We were kind of lower middle class, if you will. And so that forced us to eat our meals at home every day,
Right.
right? So my mom would come home and she'd cook us fresh meals every single day. So we didn't really eat out. We didn't eat, fast foods because we couldn't afford them.
Right.
So that's why it's like funny when people say it's cheaper to eat fast food. Yeah, that might be the case, but when you're an immigrant family and you're trying to raise two kids and you're trying to make ends meet, then it's always cheaper to make food at home. So I
Hmm.
think that was one of our blessings is that we always ate our meals at home. And my parents are just extremely loving, very caring, very generous people. They made the best with what they had. We have a very strong network of family members and great family connections. And I think that is a big part that keeps people healthy. So
Yeah.
we had a lot of those things going, the things that we now recommend to our patients, right? We had a lot of social connections. There was like 650 people at my wedding.
Hmm.
So we've had a lot of good social and tribal connections growing up. And, health was something that was not really emphasized, but it was now in hindsight, it was happening passively,
Right.
right?
Right.
It wasn't like anyone was in a crisis and we had to get healthy and make changes, but it was just the way we were brought up is making our meals at home, doing our own grocery shopping, having good social connections. My mom has 4 siblings, and they all lived in a very close proximity to us, so we'd get
Right.
together with them on a regular basis. My parents had tons of friends, so we'd see them on a weekly basis. So these are all things that we now talk about, and we understand the importance of them, but we were doing those things kind of as part of our normal lifestyle.
Right. And when did your parents move? I guess your parents came to Toronto? Moved originally to
Yeah,
Toronto?
so my dad moved in the early 70s.
Hmm.
So he moved. He went originally moved to LA, and then he went back to India and married my mom. And then him and a bunch of his friends actually moved to Toronto because it was easier to immigrate back to Toronto and have permanent
Really?
residence at that point.
Huh.
And so him and his buddies came here, and then my mom immigrated from India, and then the
Hmm.
rest is history.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
Do you
And
still go
everyone's
back to India?
The last time I went was 1990, so it's been a
Wow.
while. Yeah, it's been a
Mhm.
while.
I want to go.
Yeah, I would love to go. Um, and are your families still relatively close to each other there in Toronto?
Oh yeah, so we have one of they've moved. So my aunt moved to Tybee Island in Georgia,
Uh-huh.
and 2 of my uncles live in Canton, Michigan, and my mom's middle brother actually lives in Toronto. So it's very close. I mean, the nice thing about the internet is it keeps us connected, right? The nice thing
Right.
about WhatsApp is we actually have a family WhatsApp chat. There's like 25 people in it,
That's
and
cool.
we all meet each other pretty much every day. So we still have a very very social a close social bond with everyone.
Anyone who follows you for more than a few minutes understands that you have a very strong spiritual life as well. Um, I'd like you to talk a little bit about that, about what that means to you and how important you think that is for overall health.
Well, I think, with spirituality comes trust. And when I say trust, I think I trust in a higher power. So anything I do, and some people might say God, some people might say Gaia, some people might say energy, whatever it is you believe in. I'm not here to judge or instill my beliefs on anyone, but I just believe that there's a higher energy at play, and that we're all basically put on this planet for a very specific reason. And some of us find that very early, and I think I was pretty blessed to find out what that was very early. And everything that I do, I don't do it for myself. I do it, to satisfy the reason I was put on this planet.
Hmm.
And so, the spirituality aspect I think has really helped me, and it's helped me trust when I thought that things were not going the way I wanted to, or things weren't unfolding the way I expected them to. It's that trust that allows you to keep moving forward and moving in the right direction, and then trusting that there's a higher power at play. It
Hmm.
makes a big difference because you're able to overcome so many more obstacles. And it's really interesting is that once you have that 100% trust in this higher power, you can start manifesting. And so you can start manifesting some amazing things into your life. Like, I'll give you an example. We're outgrowing the space that we're in, which is a gift and a curse, right?
Hmm.
And there's an office that I wanted right across from my wife. And I said, I'm going to have that office by April 1st. And come March 30th, that office opened up. Okay. And that's the second time that's happened, because I wanted the office beside her. And 2 days later, that office opened up. So it's amazing once you kind of connect with this higher power and you realize, okay, there's some amazing things at play here, and now you can start massaging and leveraging this higher power to work for a greater good, right? So everything I do, I believe is for a greater good. It's not for my own personal benefit. It's more to create more positivity in the world and fulfill my purpose.
Hmm. We are truly the creators of our situation. Did you grow up with in like traditional with Buddhism or Hinduism?
So my parents are Hindu,
Hmm.
by definition, and or by upbringing. And it's actually funny because I'm not very religious. My
Hmm.
mom will kill me when she watches this, but uh, because I actually learned something really important about myself through some meditative work that I was doing. And when I was about 6 months old, my parents had to actually send me off to India. So my grandparents raised me for about a year. And so I actually had a lot of abandonment issues, very deep subconscious abandonment issues. Of course, that's a traumatic thing. You know,
Yeah. How old were you?
I was a newborn, so I was
Oh,
6 months old.
wow.
and my parents just couldn't afford a babysitter, and my grandparents couldn't move here because they didn't have any immigration status, so I had to go to India. And by the time I came back, I didn't even know who my mom was. And I
Oh my
remember
goodness.
my mom telling me the story. She was bawling her eyes out because I thought my aunt was my mom.
Sure.
So it was really, so I had a lot of issues there, very, very deep subconscious issues. And what happened to me growing up, and this is personal, but I think it'll help explain where my spirituality lies, is my mom is what I would consider what she would consider very religious, and it depends on how you would define that, right?
Sure.
And so she spends a lot of time praying to God, so her back is towards us most of the time, and that abandonment subconscious programming comes in. So I actually developed a very negative association with prayer and things like that because of that subconscious scarring that I had. So as a result of that, I don't actually enjoy going to the temple, believe it or not. I don't enjoy praying because I associate that with abandonment. And so through my own spiritual journey, and through learning more about myself and my subconscious programming, I realized that, and it was just actually a revelation that happened within the last year or so, that I realized where that negativity towards that towards that practice was coming. But in Hinduism, there's actually two layers to the religion. One is the first layer, what I call grade one, is basically focusing on a deity, right?
Mm-hmm.
So having to sit there and tune in and focus in on a deity and turn out the rest of the world. And then the second elevation is realizing that God is in everything and everywhere. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to, and I could be sitting here right now and I see God in you, right? And I see God in Mike and Joe and in the microphone and in the computer, because everything is energy. So that's the next spiritual elevation of Hinduism. And mm-hmm. so it drives my mom nuts that I don't sit there and pray, right? Because she's kind of stuck on that material level, whereas I've kind of graduated. I kind of bypassed that material level, went to the spiritual energy level, where everything I do is God, right? Everything I do is spiritual energy. Like, the way I look at it is that we're basically all sunshine. Right? We're just sunshine in motion, because every thought that we have, every motion that we have, every word that's coming out of my mouth started in the sun, right? It started off as energy, which turned into plants, which turned into my food, which turned into me, and which is fueling the whole process. So that's kind of my take on things, and I'm sure some people would disagree or agree with it, but it's interesting where that's taken me and what it's allowed me to accomplish in my life.
Yeah. Even with the different, gods, Ganesh or Shiva, the different gods, and it's really, isn't it just a manifestation of the same God, all from one God?
Well, it's all the same. It's all the same energy, right? The Godhead, right, or Brahma, we call it, mm-hmm. and the different gods just represent different facets of our life, right? So if you think of it like an organization, right, you have the overarching mission of that organization, but then you have different people within that organization that carry out different duties within that business, right, within that organization. So that's the way I kind of look at it, right? If you're, it's all to accomplish the same thing, which is to be the highest elevation of yourself.
Right. And then I guess an extension of that, or maybe another level of that, is that we are all that.
Right, exactly. Right, and that's the other thing too, is like when my mom's praying, I'm like, who are you praying to? Yourself? Because you're God. Right. You realize that, right?
Exactly.
I don't think that's unique to like Hindu traditions. Like, that's every major religion. If you take the I don't know the right PC word to use here, but the changes made by humans to the original messages of, mm-hmm. say you want to look at Buddha or Jesus or Muhammad or any of these, if you look at the original message and cut out the telephone playing of 1,500 years or 3,000 years, they all have pretty much the same thing to say, and they all said pretty much the same stuff, and it's pretty in alignment with what you're saying. Right. And I was raised, I went to Lutheran schools through 8th grade, then I went to a Catholic high school. Joe was raised Catholic. Mm-hmm. I studied religion quite a bit in college. It was kind of interesting to me. And then I've read a lot of spiritual and religious stuff after college and since then, and it's interesting to me. And like, I just think that the fighting and the wars and the things over religion is so misguided and ridiculous, but that it's been used and manipulated for a social control, just like everything else can be and is and whatever. But I think the fundamental point of almost every, at least world religion that I've studied, is the same or very similar, and that we screw it up. Like, I don't mean us personally, but humans screw it up and instill their own, like, don't eat meat on Fridays thing that the Pope made up at one point to help out the fishing industry because they were struggling, and then that became law, and then that becomes holy, and like there's so much of that added in every religion that even Taoism. I'm reading Lao Tzu, and that scholars of Lao Tzu aren't Taoist because they've seen what Taoists have done to the original message of Lao Tzu, who's the quote founder of a religion he didn't even want to start. And so it's interesting, but if you trace them all back to the original energy or message behind them, it's almost identical to what you just said.
Yeah, we're all one, right? And we just have to remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
And even to take that further, which could sound blasphemous for particular people in the West, is that we're all really God in a way, which is, you can't say that out loud.
I think you're starting to be able to. I think that look at the current Pope. He's made a lot of statements that are very progressive on a lot of things, and opening up relationships with, Israel and with Muslims and things like that. Like, I think they'll catch on. It'll come around.
Well, it's going to have to eventually, whether we like it or not.
But that's interesting, and I think that once, like, I don't know, I'm into a lot of spiritual similar stuff to you, and I think once you get to that belief or view of things, like certain changes in your life or actions that you take or things that you do or ways you, I don't want to use the word behave, but I don't know, it just becomes in alignment with that.
Yeah.
Like,
either we're gonna fight over this and go to war over this and just kill each other over it, which is ridiculous because it's like, one side saying my God is better than your God, and it's literal insanity because it's all the same energy.
Right, absolutely.
Let's just get all the gods together, throw them in a stadium, I'll sell the popcorn.
Exactly.
But no, I think then it drives your mission for helping people and for doing what you're doing and for the practice you've set up. And because when you're sitting across the desk from someone, whether they believe the same things you do or not, you believe that you're the same as them. Like you're, I don't know how to explain that without sounding like a crazy person, but I think you get it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I guess that's what Namaste is really saying, is that I recognize the God or the energy in you is the same energy that, beats my heart. It's the same energy that beats your heart, and there's that recognition. And so when you recognize that, how could you possibly be angry at someone that they were born on some imaginary line in the middle of a desert, and so you don't belong here because you were born, over there, and, I was born here.
Your approach is very different than a lot of doctors and practitioners that we talk to and work with and have come across, where a lot of people focus on the medicine end of things predominantly, the lab test, the nutrition, the biochemistry, all of that stuff, which you're quite knowledgeable on, but you do infuse, like you mentioned in your original statement, about lifestyle and relationships and mood, emotions, thoughts, like mindset. And I saw a video go viral last week that was, you can't heal a body you don't love, and that it'll never heal. Can you just speak, this is sort of related to the spiritual stuff, but the medicine too, and it's all intertwined, like how powerful that end of things has been that you've seen? Because we try to get that across the most that we can, that, you can study nutrition for years, you can study lab testing for years, and then if you're in an unsupportive, abusive relationship, or you have deep-seated animosity towards yourself, or unresolved anger, or whatever, none of that other stuff is going to matter to a point. Can you speak on that a little bit? Because you explain it in a way that's excellent, and I'd love for people to hear that.
Sure. So I'll start with this a rhetorical question. Can you buy a brand new car and crash it into a wall?
Could.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah.
Can you have an old, rattled up, tattered car and drive it safely to work?
Sure.
Absolutely, right? So what we have to remind our patients is that getting your cells healthy, your cells are constantly replacing themselves with healthy cells, right? Your cells don't replace themselves with an old, tattered, broken down cell. What we have to remind our patients of is that if we work on the chemistry, if we work on the nutrient status, that's one thing. That's just one layer of the problem, but the function that the cell carries out is based on the signal that the cell receives. So if I put a healthy, 100% healthy cell in a toxic environment, the cell will carry out stress and catabolic behavior. If I put that same cell in a healthy, nurturing, loving environment, guess what? The chemical soup in your blood is going to be different when you have gratitude, when you have positivity, when you're in a positive, nurturing environment. So the cell's function is going to be different. And so it's not about restoring cell status. It's really about restoring and signaling the cell appropriately. Just like a car, right? I could take a brand new car, and if I don't know how to drive it, if I send it all the wrong messages, I can drive it into a wall. But if I take that same car and I know how to drive it and I send it the right messages, I can get to work. And this is why, you have to ask yourself, why are some people who eat whatever they want, drink whatever they want, smoke whatever they want, right? How are these people healthy? They're healthy because they probably have other areas in their life where they're not being dragged down, right? You'll never be healthy working a job you hate. You'll never be healthy sleeping next to someone that you can't stand. You'll never be healthy if you have a negative dialogue with and low self-esteem or a negative interaction with yourself on a daily basis, because you're telling your cells to do the things that you don't want them to do, right? And a lot of people live in a very sympathetic state. And when I explain things to patients, I show them the autonomic nervous system, and I show them this is what your body does when you're in a sympathetic state. This is what your body does when you're in a parasympathetic state. Regardless of what your nutritional status is, this is the function that it carries out. So I can feed you really healthy, because mind you, most people that come to me aren't coming to me from McDonald's, right? They're coming and they're already eating pretty healthy. They're already addressing the fundamental things like diet and exercise, which we've been told for many years those are the holy grails for getting healthy, which is not true. Really what the holy grail for getting healthy is cell signaling. And of course, eating right and exercising does send the cell the right message. But if you go from the gym and then you go home to your husband who you can't stand, well, guess what? We're sending now the cells a completely different message, right? And the cells forget that you exercised half an hour ago. What they're doing is they're living in real time, right? They live in real time with your thoughts and with your environment. And that's if we don't focus on that, we can make people look great on paper. This is why when people go to their doctor and they said, oh, my doctor said everything's normal, I can't stand my doctor, I'm like, well, it's not your doctor's fault. You probably are normal, right? It's like going to the mechanic and the mechanic doesn't find anything wrong with your car. You wouldn't be mad at the mechanic. You're going to start questioning, how am I driving? What's my environment like? Am I driving over potholes all the time, right? Am I swerving into different lanes? Am I not aware of the rules of the road? And most people aren't when it comes to their health. So I think that's the biggest thing that gets overlooked, is the message that we're sending the cell. And then doctors are left kind of scratching their heads because they're like, hey, you're taking the vitamins, right? And they focus on compliance or increase the dose. Maybe we're not giving you enough. Well, maybe you need to look somewhere else and figure out what else this person needs besides pills and potions and lotions. They might need to just get a hug from their husband every day. They might need to be appreciated more. They might need to change the job that they're in because they can't stand it. So there's all these other things that nobody really looks at, and once you explain it to somebody, it seems so obvious, and you wonder why everyone isn't focusing on these things. Because there's people that don't eat healthy that are happy, right? Because they love what they do, right? And there's the interesting thing about the entrepreneur's paradox is that entrepreneurs very rarely get sick. Right? It's because they love what they do. How can you grind it out for 80 hours a week, year after year, and never feel sick and never feel tired? Whereas if I you hated to do for 80 hours a week, you'd be sick within the 6 months.
Sure.
Right? Your body's looking for an excuse not to do those things. And I think it just boils down to cell signaling. Yeah. And that's a huge part that gets overlooked. And what people do is they just try to fix the cells, and they think, okay, I'm going to fix what we see on paper. But they're not fixing what's telling the cell to do its job or not do its job.
Still looking for the quick fix. So, take this pill or this supplement, and then you'll be fine. Looking for something external to make them healthy or make them happy.
Well, here's the thing: if you want a quick fix, the quickest fix is actually changing how you think. Right? Nothing's going to make you feel better or worse quicker than what you think about.
Right.
It might take months to get your nutrient status up to play, right? Or it might even take half an hour for you to feel better after popping a pain medication.
Right.
But if you change what you're thinking about, then you can instantly, in that moment, change how you feel. So if you want a quick fix, then just change what you think about. That's the quickest way to fix anything.
Mm-hmm. That sounds like, but that's sometimes the hardest work to do. That's a tough prescription to fill for some people. It's especially someone who's in a bad relationship or in a job that they hate.
Mm-hmm.
In a cubicle under fluorescent lights all day, and they can't stand it. How do you explain to someone in the situation like that oh, you just have to change the way you think? Do you fake it and then and hope that everything else sort of catches up to this the story you're telling yourself?
No, that's a great question, and of course that's the response people have is, how do I change this? Well, we can't always change the situation, but if we go back to what I said, we can change what we think about the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can change. Like Zig Ziglar has a great story about this because, and he tells this obviously better than I'm going to tell it, but he talks about a lady that comes up to him and she's like, she can't stand her job, she hates it, but she's got to go to work, and he says, well, let's talk about the positive things that are happening about you, and I want you to write all these things down, right? So she gets insurance from her employer, she gets paid above average salary, she's been getting a raise every few years, it puts food on her table. Like, what is the trickle effect or the positive things that are a result of these things that you might not like doing? And let's focus on those things, right? Because we can amplify something that's very, very, very small, and we can amplify that to make it really, really big. But let's take the things that are actually positive and let's amplify those things.
Mm-hmm.
And that way we can crowd out some of the negative things that are going on. And eventually you'll find that job, right? If you put that energy out there. If you condition yourself and you kind of lay over and say, well, this is the only option for me, I'm going to have to work this job for, and guess what? You're going to create that and manifest that reality.
Mm-hmm.
But if you put something out there that says, hey, I love what I'm doing, here's the benefits of what I'm doing. I might not like everything about what I do, but you can focus on those things. And in the meantime, you can kind of subconsciously plant a seed that says, hey, I'm open and I'm ready for other opportunities that might present themselves. And guess what? They usually do, right? It's amazing when we put the right intentions out there and the right frequency out there, what we can attract into our lives.
Yeah. I mean, I've experienced that myself, but I'm anticipating, if it sounds like I'm playing devil's advocate a little bit, it's just because I'm anticipating some people with questions like, with what you're saying sounds like The Secret, and sounds like you just think about something and you can get a new car, or you'll have that BMW in the driveway just by thinking about it.
No, trust me, I work my ass off.
Yes.
Right? So it's not you can't think about it, and I think they're coming out with a new movie called The Abundance Factor, which talks about that. Is you got to put the work in, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just like if I want to go from here to Disneyland, yeah, I can get there. I have to first think about going there, otherwise I'm not gonna. Where am I gonna go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I've got to make the drive. I've got to make the pilgrimage to actually get there. So yeah, we've got to put the work in. And most people don't know this. I'll share this story with you. Before I started Living Proof Institute, I was working for a company that basically I had a lot of autonomy. So I was doing functional medicine. I was doing chiropractic services. We had a couple offices inside gyms. I had the number 1 and 2 practice in the entire company. They had 30 locations. And I was actually making so much money that they couldn't afford to pay me because they were making bad hiring decisions and they couldn't afford to pay out, my end of the share. And so I was $60,000. They were $60,000 indebted to me.
Wow.
And here I am. I just built a brand new house. I built the house with no floors, so I had to put in brand new floors. Right, poor old me. Right, so don't feel sorry for me. These are just bad decisions I made. Right,
Mm-hmm.
so I imported Turkey. I imported granite from Turkey. Right, I put all these brand new floors in. Had to pay for them out of pocket. Right, so it wasn't in my mortgage. My wife is a pharmacist, so she had a great 6-figure income. And after having my son, she wasn't working anymore, and my parents lost their business, so they moved in with me. So I had 5 mouths to feed, and I had no money coming in.
Wow.
Right? And so you can imagine the amount of stress that I was under.
Mm-hmm.
But what I ended up doing was I had to walk away from that job. And in fact, not only did I walk away from that job, but I didn't even go after the money, because what I said to myself is, if I've earned this money, because money's nothing but energy, but if I've earned this money, it'll find its way to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll let the universe take care of it. I'll let the universe take care of them, and I'll let the universe take care of me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so again, that's where your faith and spirituality comes in. And yeah, I could have been a hard ass about it and devoted all my energy to suing them and all of those things, but I wouldn't have created the life that I have right now. So I know what it's like to have hardship. I know what it's like to be down in the dumps, and I've trust me, I've had many sleepless nights where I didn't know where my next paycheck was coming from, and I didn't know how I was going to pay my mortgage. So what it boiled down to for me is knowing what I wanted, knowing that I had a higher purpose, knowing that if I aligned with this purpose, that everything would take care of itself. But I got to do the work, right? So I've, for the last 5 years, haven't taken a single day off. I've traveled to the ends of the world to try to learn as much as I can, and I just try to do as much good as I can with the energy that I have and with the resources that I have, and in 5 years I've dramatically turned my life around. So it's I know what it's like to be on the other end of that equation.
Mm-hmm. You say you haven't taken a day off, but I don't get the sense that you consider what you do work either.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. It's not like I punch in and punch out, right? So it's when you're working in an intellectual capacity, there's always something going on up here. Mm-hmm. Right? It's not, the type of work that you guys do and the type of work that I do it's not like, okay, I punch out and then I don't have to think about work from Friday at 5 o'clock until Monday morning at 9, right? There's always something going on upstairs.
Yeah, it goes back to what we started out this podcast talking about for people who celebrate Fridays. It's, if you're looking forward to Friday all week long and it's a relief when 5 o'clock on Friday comes along, maybe that's something that you need to look at in your own life if you're living for the weekends, right?
Well, you know what? I think there's, to that point, I think you're right, but I think there's certain people, and there's nothing wrong with these people because we all need people on our team, right? We need people that are going to work the 9 to 5, and they need a life, and they have family members as well. But I think for entrepreneurs and people who are go-getters, it never shuts off, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with us working all the time, and there's nothing wrong with people who need to shut off. Right? Because I think the 5 to 9 is just as important as the 9 to 5. But if your 9 to 5 is ruining your 5 to 9, then you're in trouble, right? If it's sucking all the energy out of you, if it's making you a nasty person, then that's not a good situation. But I think we need those worker bees, right? We need the worker bees to do the work and grind it out and help people and serve people. But we also need people who are visionaries like you guys are, and perhaps I am, to kind of create the work for these people.
You definitely are. No question about that. Yeah, and I think that's certainly, they're, like you talked about earlier, we're all meant to be here. We all have a reason for being here, and there are certain people who are meant to, play that supporting role, and they do it brilliantly. I think we do need times to shut down. So what do you do to sort of balance, what can be certainly a hectic life of being an entrepreneur? What do you do to sort of balance that out?
Yeah, it's a work in progress. So for me, disconnecting from Facebook, disconnecting from the internet. I love working out. That's something that allows me to disconnect. So I do a lot of classes. I found that when I do classes and group workouts, then you can't be on your phone in between sets or reps, right? Because there's always action, there's always movement going on. Right. So I found that to be a good release. I love going in nature. There's a conservancy just down the street from where I live, and I spend some time there, as much time as I can. And I have a 5.5-year-old, so I love just spending time with him, as much time with him as I can. And I'll be the first to admit I need to spend more time with him. And right after this podcast, I'm going to be going home and doing just that. So awesome. It's really disconnecting is probably the best way to reconnect with myself. And I had a lady come in a couple of weeks ago, and she doesn't own a computer. I'm like, you are the luckiest person on the planet. You're not going to get any of my emails, but you're the luckiest person on the planet. Yeah. And I just I don't know if I can ever go back to that to that reality, but who knows? I mean, so for me, it's just about disconnecting, because otherwise there's always going to be emails, there's always going to be Facebook dings, there's always going to be stuff to do. Yeah. And one of the golden rules that I have is I charge my battery at 100% on my computer, and I'm not allowed to plug it in over the weekend.
Oh, that's interesting. So when it runs out, it's out.
Yeah, when it's out, it's out. So you got to be really efficient with what you do, or not do anything, right? So so the goal is always, how much charge can I have left at the end of the weekend? That's a sign of me kind of disconnecting.
It's a good tip.
I like that. Yeah.
And to your client that doesn't have a computer, Mira just went back to a flip phone.
My
Oh my
brother has a
God.
flip phone, and I'm a bit jealous. Yeah.
Yeah. And then vacations, exploring new terra. I was just in Jamaica a few weeks ago, and it was just an amazing trip with friends. And it was nice because your phone basically doesn't. I mean, it works there, but you got to pay an arm and a leg, so it just ends up being a camera at that point. So that was
Right.
nice. Just uh, going on vacation, getting away from it all. I think that's
Yeah.
important as well. And we tend to take mini vacations, so we'll take a I don't work clinically on Mondays and Fridays, so those are what I call my coaching and personal and business development days. And so the nice thing about that is, I can take a Friday off, or I can take a Monday off and just turn every weekend, or one weekend a month into a 4-day weekend, and I don't miss a
Right.
skip. I don't miss a skip or a beat in terms of clinical hours in the practice.
Right. Mike knows a little bit about disconnecting for a little while and coming back from Nicaragua.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we were just in Nicaragua for 2 weeks last month. Or
It's
actually, that
awesome.
was in February. It's a month and a half ago now, which is sad. I want to go back already.
Wow. Yeah.
Where'd you go in Jamaica?
We went to Ocho Rio, and then we went to Negril.
Okay, I've been to Montego and Negril.
Yeah.
It's pretty, man. It was nice. It was 15 years ago though, but
Wow. Did you go to Rick's Cafe?
I did.
Did you jump off the cliff?
I did.
Ah,
Yes, so did
Yeah.
I.
Yeah. I don't know if it was in my best interest at the time when I did it, due to several beverages I consumed at Rick's Cafe. But so don't try that at home. But yes, I was 21, so it was a little bit different point in my life.
Yeah, actually, I
Uh,
actually, I actually had a drink there. I'm like, you know what? I don't drink very often, but I'm like, I'm in the moment, and I just jumped off this cliff, and there's a beautiful sunset. So yeah, I recommend maybe having a drink afterwards instead of.
Yeah,
sounds like the
the
right
other way
move.
around probably would have been smarter. And we were going to do the waterfall hikes too, but decided against that because of the drinks. And we were like, I don't think walking up waterfalls drunk is probably the best bet. Let's go back to the beach.
Yeah. Yeah. Good
So,
move. Good move.
Always,
but
beach
Jamaica
is a
was really
safe bet.
pretty. There are parts of Nicaragua where Jamaica and Nicaragua have a similar, that like mountainous, jungly type rainforest climate, pretty similar. Very different cultures, but it was it's nice to get into the tropics
Yeah.
whenever I can. That's kind of where I feel most at home, is in the Caribbean.
I'm
Yeah,
fortunate where I live. We have within, anywhere from 5 to 20-minute driving distance. We have hundreds of miles of hiking trails. Believe it or not, here on Long Island, you wouldn't think, but it's you can walk for 35 miles in one direction, and there's another trail that goes about 110 miles, and almost not cross a road. And that it's pretty amazing how that was organized. So I get to have little mini vacations in an afternoon if I need to, just by getting in the car and driving for a little while. But that's really important.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. What's
Cool.
what's like a typical? Sometimes we talk about having routines in the morning or in the evening. What's a typical morning routine look like for you?
Okay, so I'll be transparent and say this doesn't happen every day, right? I
Hmm.
think I think that's important, because I think when people talk about their routine, they make it sound like they do it every single day,
That's true. I might be guilty of that myself.
but I would say that I do this 80% of the time, because sometimes my son wakes up a little bit earlier than I expect him to, so things get thrown off. But I would say my ideal routine is I wake up in the morning, and my wife and I actually do a meditation together, and then I usually go to the gym 3 days a week. So I go to UFC training, which is the Ultimate Fighter training club right down the street from me. So I go there 3 times a week, and then I'll come back and spend some time with my son. We'll have breakfast together, and then I'll drop him off at school. My wife and I will both drive together, drop him off at school, and we usually get to the office around 9:15 or so, and then we start seeing patients at 10. But some of the details go like this. So I typically go to bed around 10, so I'm usually up by around 4:35ish. And then in the morning when I get up, my wife's not up at that point. She usually wakes up around 6. I'll spend some time kind of reflecting and just kind of mentally planning the day, and then I'll reflect in my gratitude journal. I use the 5-minute journal, and so I'll write down what my aspirations are for that day, my affirmations for that day, and then usually my wife wakes up and we'll do our meditation together. It's a guided meditation. It's actually the Deepak Chopra and Oprah Winfrey guided meditation that we're doing right now,
Hmm.
and then we'll kind of get up and do our thing. So we prepare breakfast together. She does most of the work. So if she's watching this, I got to make that very clear. She does most of the work. My brain actually, I go online and start kind of posting for the day, just try to get some content out there, so that people can start resonating with it, and hopefully it adds a positive influence to people's days. And that's why I try to do it early. I know some people say don't go on Facebook in the morning, but I'm like, you know what? If I can make people's days better, then why not? The earlier I start, the better, right?
Sure. That's actually a really good way to look at it, because sometimes I feel, I feel guilty for going on Facebook too early in the morning, and I feel like sometimes it sort of screws up my day. But I think, like you said before, just shifting the way you think about these things is much healthier.
Yeah, my whole motto is that, if I usually wake up, I find before most people do. So, if I can get a positive message out there, and if most people are guilty of going on their phones early in the morning or first thing in the morning and logging into Facebook, let's say hypothetically, then why shouldn't they see something positive?
Right.
Right? Because
sure.
I know what the alternative is, right? So if I can have a positive influence on people, then it also, from a marketing standpoint, if you will, keeps you top of mind awareness, and it allows people to resonate with you and start their day off right.
Who are some of the people that you listen to, or authors that you are reading right now that are really kind of influencing you right now?
Good question. There's actually a lot of books that I've just recently been sent, and so I've got quite a few sitting on my nightstand. And I'm trying to pick chapters from each one. But Kelly Brogan's book, A Mind of Your Own, is really quite exceptional. I was listening to a book this morning on my way to work called Mindset, and then I'm also reading Pedro Msoje's book called The Urban Monk.
That book's great.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Like the fourth person that told me about that book, so I'm gonna have to get it.
I read it in Nicaragua in 3 days in a hammock. And it was great. Kelly's book is here too.
Yeah, so those are great books, and I just got a book from Dr. Akil called The Paleo-Vedic Diet, and that's combining Ayurvedic principles, which I know, Joe, you're quite interested in, and paleo principles. So understanding your dosha in combination with a paleo type diet.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah.
And it's actually, I just got the book yesterday, so I haven't actually cracked it open. But the book is, when I glanced through it, it's a beautiful book. It's written, it's easy on the eyes because everything's kind of nicely segmented, and you can kind of read little chunks of it here and there. Versus a lot of books, I find there's just continuous runs of chapters, right? So the whole chapter is one series of paragraphs, whereas what he's done, he's got little mini sections within each chapter, so you can just take a little paragraph, take that and run with it, instead of having to feel like you need to read the whole chapter to get what you want out of it.
Oh, it's really cool. I'm going to check that out. Awesome. So let folks know, the best way to connect with you online, and we can wrap things up.
Sure. So I think the best way really to connect with us is probably to go on our Facebook page, because that's where I'm the most active. So they can go to facebook.com/Dr. Sachin Patel, or they can go to facebook.com/becomeproof. That's our business page. The other thing that they can do is go to our homepage. So they can go to becomeproof.com and opt in if they want to get on our email list. We're actually in the process of updating our website, so we should have that done in the next couple of weeks. So they'll get all new content that we're creating as well. And then, another thing, that if you're a practitioner and you're watching this and you're interested in coaching, if you're interested in learning more about our coaching program that we're launching, which would be a whole different podcast, maybe we can do that. But
sure.
We're actually launching a coaching program for functional medicine practitioners to teach them our systems and not make the same mistakes and run into the same issues that I ran into for the last 5 years trying to figure out how to market functional medicine and messaging and all that stuff. So we're going to give everyone basically a full rundown of what we do from A to Z in terms of how we market our practice, how we market our workshops, how our internal systems work, all of our autoresponders. And what's different about this program compared to other coaching programs is that it's all done for you. So we've designed it so it's very copy and paste. You don't have to, it's not just theoretical, hey, this is what you should be doing and go figure it out yourself. Because that takes a lot of time, and doctors don't have time, right? And we want your success to materialize very quickly, and there's no sense in reinventing the wheel. And if you're living in a completely different city, people aren't going to see the same ads and the same messaging, and you can build your own brand under under our guidance and with our blessings, without having to recreate everything. So then you
That's
can
great.
get up and running so much more quicker. So that's another project we're working on, and that's set to release in July. So
Great.
maybe in the
Great.
next month or so we can do a podcast on that.
Absolutely, or a webinar or something. That's fantastic. And this is going to be for any kind of practitioner or licensed practitioners or health coaches or.
Yeah, so it'll be mainly focused around people who are doing functional medicine, because we're also going to provide some clinical coaching as well. So we want to make sure everyone kind of speaks the same language, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the principles are universal, so anyone can do it. But I think that if you're looking for that plug and play, copy and paste type of solution, then it's going to be, the language is going to be geared, and the marketing is going to be geared mainly to functional medicine practitioners. So FDN graduates would be great candidates,
Right.
FMU graduates, IFM graduates, anyone who's doing functional medicine. And really we want functional medicine practitioners because that's how the marketing and everything is going to be set up.
Mm-hmm.
But we want to make sure that people are graduates of a training program, because when we teach you these powerful marketing techniques, we have to make sure that you can help these people clinically too, right?
That's a good point.
So that's the other thing, is like, we can teach you great marketing, but you have to be able to fix these people, and I need to know that you have the basic training to do that.
Excellent. Well, we know a few FDNs, so we'll definitely be able to help you out there for sure. Great. Excellent. Dr. Patel, this has been fantastic. Great conversation. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks, man. It's always tons of fun, and we learn a lot from you. So thank you for everything you're doing.
Awesome. Well, thank you both, and keep up the great work. You guys are awesome.
Thanks, you too.
We'll have you back soon.
Awesome.
Well, there you go. There's Dr. Sachin Patel. Truly an honor. Always a pleasure to speak with him. He's a real leader in this community, and someone we always look towards for great information and inspiration on how to live healthy and happy. He's just a great guy. So there you go, Dr. Sachin Patel. You can check him out at becomeproof.com, and don't forget to visit us at rebelhealthtribe.com. That's all for now, folks. We'll talk to you soon.